how do we, extract emotion out of something that has nothing?
That's storytelling.
That's storytelling. Yeah.
Done right.
Yeah. It's
the
like
overused word that most people don't use properly.
Oh, man. Give me your kind of like cold note of what is storytelling.
I can give it to you in one word.
Go for it.
Intention.
Okay.
And basically, we can present a series of facts. That's not a story. We can present a series of images. That's not a story. In fact, as these guys know that have been in my class, I don't give a fuck about your cool shots.
Yep.
Because unless, and it's always the added unless they're motivated to help tell the story.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's intention.
Mm-hmm.
Intention, motivation, give it a word, but the same thing. What is the intent for this single or multiple shots? At least 24 shots a second, right? Or more.
Yeah.
And it's all about intention. What is the intent? And I think when you're looking at film and when you're critiquing film, if I'm jumping ahead here for a second, but if you're critiquing film, you're looking at film, like what makes a good movie over a bad movie, etc. You got to look at, first of all, what was the intention? What's the message? What is the director trying to say?
Yeah.
And then, because most people will look at a film and say, I liked it because it looked cool. The acting was cool. The writing was cool. All the stuff that, you look at through what I call the formless lens. How was it created? But if you're looking at it that way, you're not really looking at the underneath. What is the actual message? And I think if you understand the message first, then you can determine how cool it was made in order to help convey the intended message. So I always say, look at it through the contextualist lens first. What is the movie trying to say? And then through the formless lens, how was it cinematically presented in order to convey that message? And that, to me, is proper film critique. And in turn, if you understand that, then you apply that knowledge when making your own content. Mm-hmm. So I think it's really important that any student of film understands how to critique it, not to become a film critic, because we all have our opinions on film critics. A real film critic is not someone who just critiques film, but somebody who actually can make content as well. And that's another thing too. Content and storytelling are also two different things. Everybody talks about creating content.
Sure.
Are you creating content? Because everybody can create content. That's the mistake.
But I think if you're looking at content on the pure layer that is the internet right now, right? Like, a book is content, right? A movie is content, right? Content is a structure of information delivered to you. It doesn't necessarily need to have storytelling in it, but content is, for the content's sake, is just a linear, you start here, you end here.
Yeah, it's just facts.
It's just facts. It could be, a wordy fact kind of concept and kind of floats around a bit, but content doesn't really have to draw out an intention of anybody. It doesn't have to draw out an emotion from anybody. It's just like, here's what's going on, right? Like the facts of it, right?
So news, you could look at it that way.
Yeah,
news
that's content.
Should not be entertainment.
Yeah.
And we know where news is today. So news should be a presentation of facts.
I agree.
With no editorial, no storytelling in the sense that we're talking about today.
Mm-hmm.
It should be, but I think the mistake is when people talk about, I've created a lot of content. Yeah, but you haven't done shit.
Yeah.
You haven't told me anything.
Yeah.
You've just presented facts, but you haven't, when I say told me anything, sorry, let me rephrase that. You haven't made me feel anything.
Okay.
You might have unintentionally.
Yeah.
But
not what you want.
Not what you want.
Yeah.
And it's when you do present facts with intention that it becomes something different. It's like, when you define, like, say, what is a documentary? Well, a documentary is a creative way of presenting actualities, right? Mm-hmm. So it's that creative part. When people say the art of documentary making, like, well, it's not an art. Journalism is not art. I'm like, I'm not talking about journalistic documentary making. I'm talking about the art of documentary making.
Yeah. When
you don't leave with facts, but you leave with a vibe, with an emotion that lasts longer than the end credits, that's good storytelling.
I love that. And I think there's some layers that you have to go through when you're creative, right? And I kind of want to broaden this to creatives. So it's not just filmmakers, not just photographers. There's going to be creatives. So if you are making something today, all of this is applicable, right? So whether it's, a hand medium such as painting, right? You still need a story in there, or it's just a beautiful painting, right? So there has to be an emotive reasoning behind it to make it work. When people start making content, is because they're trying to figure out how to do the thing, right? Like how to make it look that way. And I would say, like, there's a layer you've got to get to where you've got to build enough content where you're comfortable enough to be able to make a specific look. And only then, like, the barrier of entry, I call it, is like, then when you got that quality, now you can start bringing in that story. And that's always what resonated with me is like, you have to have that first, when actually I've had it wrong the entire time. Like the content is really irrelevant. The story is everything. And if the story is good, it actually doesn't matter how good your audio is, how good your visuals are, because a good story can be told no matter what, right? Around a campfire, on a TikTok, it doesn't matter. Good storytelling is how we communicate as people. And ultimately, this is the quickest way to achieve anything, is to tell that story. And if you can do that, then you've kind of mastered the ability to communicate well.
Which is interesting, because when students do initially in first or second year, when we had our 3-year program, when they would come to me with their cool shots. Now, they are building up to the point you just made, which is, okay, they're learning the tools. It's like, I learned how to use this paintbrush. Look at the paint stroke. The paint stroke it's a beautiful paint stroke. You did well with the paint stroke. What's it saying? I don't know, but it looks cool. And I might, exaggerate how I go, well, I don't care about that. No, be honest. Really, at the end of the day, I'm going, good job. Now, how are you going to harness that to tell a story? So I think the approach is still sound. You can still shoot cool shots. You can still, in the learning process, in getting to the stage of becoming a storyteller. So I think it depends on the approach. If you're looking on how to use the tools, these cameras are tools. Every filter, every piece of software attached to it, they're all tools. They don't tell the story. They're just the buttons we press. So it's okay to present me with cool shots. Now it's figuring out, okay, now when you have learned how to use all these tools, now hopefully you're also learning storytelling. How do you harness all those tools to tell the story you want to tell? So as much as I make fun of the idea of, I don't give a shit about your cool shots, I do. As long as you're going beyond the learning of the cool shot making.
Yeah.
And you're able to harness that to then tell a story, then all jokes aside, your cool shots are pretty cool nonetheless, because I know you're on your way to harnessing them to create something. You're really good at using that drill, that hammer, that saw, that level, but have you made anything with it? I can see that you're cutting the piece of wood really nicely. You really drilled that screw into that deck board nicely. But let's look at the end picture. Like that thing that you created, is it good? And when you get to the stage of where you're designing a deck, a house, some sort of structure, and you're using the tools like it's like breathing. Like these guys now are using a lot of these tools like it's nothing. Not like it's not, but they're focused on the use of the tool. But they know there's a means to the end, and it's when you start thinking that way, then I give a shit about your cool shots.
Well, and everything's like, I know when you walked in, you were looking at the lights to go, why? And what are they motivating, right? So like that's the first thing you did when you walked into the set.
Sure.
So you're like looking like, okay, I get that. Yep, that makes sense. That makes sense. And you're looking for the motivation of those lights. And that's the emotion that we want to convey in this set, in this environment.
Intention.
Right?
What's the intent? Why is there this light behind me here that's shining in and brightening this spot? Is it sunny outside?
Oh yeah.
It might be.
It was according to me when I walked in. I had no idea that light was there. And like seeing Chris's face light up, like, yep, I've done a good job.
Yeah.
Because yep, that's perfect.
Because that's the intent.
Yeah.
Again, goes back to intention. What's the intent? Like, I think with story, everything you include in a story, whether it's technical or the actual words you're using, which in itself is another technicality, you should always ask why.
Yeah.
And if there's no answer to the because it's cool, no, it has to have an intention. And that's why I say if we were to, I was thinking about this morning, if I had to answer the question, what is storytelling in one word? I go back to that word, intention.
I love that.
Or motivation.
Yeah.
Intention, though, I think.
Yeah. Intention and motivation can kind of be interchanged, right? So there's a wave of new artists right now that are claiming artistry by being prompt engineers. And you and I have had these conversations.
To now. Sorry.
Yeah, I know you and I have had a little bit of conversation about that. And I do kind of want to steer it there for a little bit, because whenever there's a new technology, everyone poops on it usually. And they're like, no, that's it. It's the end of the world. Like digital is, it sucks. Film's the only way to do this. Right. And then eventually you get into like, this is now a commonplace technology. So are we looking at an emerging technology that'll be commonplace? Or is it just a fad? Or is it just like because I feel like this technology in particular is removing the one thing that makes, digital or film feel good or look good or be good. It removes the intention, it removes the creativity out of it, and it replaces it with a algorithm of this has worked in the past, which you and I both know Like we've seen this in movies where movies are like, oh my God, that's great. We need to do more of that. And then they all pile on it. And then 5 years down the road, no one wants to watch those movies because they've seen them 1,000 times at this point, right? So is this new technology going to help creators, or is it going to be a road bump in the ecosphere of creativity?
I think it's kind of like, imagine, Pigpen from Peanuts, if you're familiar with that character, or the Tasmanian Devil. Like there's this cloud of dust and energy and frenetic just craziness happening. And I think we're in the stage of that's ramping up still. The dust is not quite anywhere near settling yet. And what I believe is like there's a great, when consumer cameras, for instance, came out, little portable digital cameras came out, or even mini DV cameras, all of a sudden anybody could pick up a camera and start recording, minutes of footage and create film. And it was like, now everybody's a filmmaker. This is the same thing. It's just that when you talk about AI, it's not like digital versus analog, because that affects a certain aspect. AI affects everything. And it's been with us for much longer than we realize. Like every time you use your debit card, every time you use, a GPS system or whatever, we're using art or augmented intelligence or whatever. So when it comes to storytelling, I think it's somebody might quickly say it's an equalizer. I think it just gives, it gives many creators or budding creators or wannabe creators an opportunity to create stuff. But that's amongst that crazy maelstrom of dust and frenetic energy, like the Tasmanian Devil spinning and spinning. Once that settles, and once people learn that it's just a tool and not the answer, then I think you'll see the real creatives will sustain, will not just emerge, but just will remain the same.
So right now we're at the cool shot stage.
Yeah.
These are all real cool shots.
These are really cool.
These don't matter, but really cool.
Yeah, I think the most recent one that everybody's like talking about is the Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise fight scene. What's that called? Seacrest or whatever it's called? It's some AI that created that battle between. You guys seen this? Like it's basically, you look it up, Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt fighting on a rooftop.
Yeah.
And it's
I've seen that one, yeah.
Pure AI.
I thought you were going to punch the monkey, so.
I don't want to talk about the monkey. Poor monkey. If we're talking about, which monkey are we talking about now?
No, the punch the monkey, they ended up doing some like AI punch the monkey, getting back at all the monkeys that were beating up on him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so they like created these AI fight scenes with the punch the monkey getting his revenge.
And
I was like, that's actually a good use for AI. And that's got some why behind it. And it's got some genuine kind of creativity behind it.
But it's a flash, right?
But it's a flash. It's a flash in the pan. It's not going to be something we're going to talk about next week or the week after. It's going to be something.
That's just it. This is going to be an ongoing conversation for sure.
Yes.
But, it's not going to be like, 3D TV, 3D film.
Yeah.
It had a surge, and everybody's like, "Oh, we got to introduce 3D technology in post-secondary education. We're going to open up a whole school about 3D TV," and that lasted like that and was gone. Yep. Nobody cared as much after a while.
No,
I think the last time I saw a good 3D piece of content was Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse with the animated, the first animated Spider-Man, which I thought in 3D animation works. But in real life, in action, it doesn't sustain. So
it's a very niche.
It's very, very niche, and it has its place. AI covers everything. But what will sustain is when the people who know to use it as a tool and not an answer. And that applies with like in academia, it applies in our creative fields, whether it's camera technology, storytelling. Stories are getting, AI is getting better and better and harder to detect. But let's be honest, we can detect it. We can tell the difference. But is it that we can tell a difference, or is it because the ones who are creating that content that we're analyzing, critiquing, the people that are creating it aren't the better storytellers, and therefore the flaws are more easy the flaws, the cracks, the chinks in the armor are more easy to identify. Yeah. And therefore we can point, that's AI. Because there's probably going to be some good AI. We're like, I can't tell. Like if you talk about CGI is a form of AI, right?
Fair.
So, when people talk about, Peter Jackson and his amazing work with Lord of the Rings, first time that Tolkien's work was presented in a way that lovers of Tolkien could appreciate, my father and myself being two of them. I say that in some of the content I've created, I've put out there, so like the minimal use of AI or CGI. Like, no, there's plenty of CGI. I'm like, yeah, but it's not at the forefront of what's being presented. It's a tool to enhance,
Yeah.
not a first and foremost, here it is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally makes
Right?
sense. Because it's, again, like, it's a tool to be used in your arsenal of tools, right? Like, just as any camera to be used or any light can be used. It's the intention behind it, right? Which we talk about. And, you know, how you want the flow to go. Because I think, like, as someone going from I'm telling one frame of story to I'm telling an entire kind of like 5-10 minutes to 15 minutes or however long I want to make the piece, you know, it's an interesting thing because there is an arc to it, right? And there is layers to it that I never even considered, right? So like I had to learn about the hero's journey and all the kind of like the
different frameworks, storytelling frameworks. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And you start learning about these frameworks and you're like, well, why do they work so well? Right? Or can I break them? Well, you at your peril because people tend to like, no. So go ahead if you got a fault in that.
So you ever been in the shower and there's music playing in the living room or some other part of the house and all you can hear is the bass line? And you're trying to identify that song?
Yep.
Right? I was doing that this morning. And I was like, that's really repetitive. What a boring song. And I realized the playlist that's playing is like my favorite tunes playing on the stereo on the other side of the wall. But all I can hear is like this repetitive bass line. And then I realized, oh, wait, that's like one of my favorite INXS songs. And it made me realize that there was the connection between that, the bass line of any song, good, like the best drummers, for instance. We can talk about Neil Peart, Stuart Copeland, Buddy Rich, Karen Carpenter, and Ringo Starr. Many drummers will say that Ringo Starr, he had a very minimalist set. Yep. But he was perfect at keeping time. He was the framework at the base of every Beatles hit, right? He's that basic framework that kept it on beat. A good storytelling framework keeps a story on beat. And it may seem on the surface that when you learn these frameworks, like, well, that's just a formula that repeated over and over. I said, yeah, but so is a drum beat. A good drum beat, when done properly, can be repetitive. I mean, you take it beyond, and this is the other thought is when you take it to the point where a Neil Peart level, for instance, from Rush, he didn't just start playing like that. He learned the basics, and he didn't learn to break the rules. He just learned to go beyond and transition, not pivot, but just transition to a higher level. And with progressive rock, it needed that sort of whatever. But he started with a base level. So when you're learning storytelling, if you can play that drum beat properly and learn that formula, then the lead guitar and lead singer on top of that can follow that. But every song is going to be different. But there's going to be there's going to be drummers and bass players who are going to argue this and get mad at me for saying this. But there's I'm looking at Jake right now because you're a bass player, right? Yeah. So he's somebody who can probably understand and maybe go, wait a minute. I also absolutely you provide a level to the music that you play, and I think that a good framework does the same. Learn the framework, and it's not learn the rules to break them. We've been saying that for years and years, and I think it's more about learn the framework and not break it, but just enhance it. You're still using the framework. Like people talk about crossing the axis, for instance, and we're talking now, okay, that's a bit away from storytelling, well, unless it's used properly. But breaking the axis, we all know what that means. So you keep the camera on one side of the axis between us. As soon as you cross over, it's like, well, we're looking at the same direction, even though we're facing in different directions. It's going to discombobulate the audience or whatever. What if the audience is meant to be confused? What if you got two characters in the middle of the desert dying of thirst and completely lost, and the camera keeps on crossing the axis? Is that because Sergio Leone doesn't know what he's talking about? Or is it because he's trying to make, Clint Eastwood, we're supposed to feel that loss. So the point is going back to that whole thing of listening to that bass line in the shower it felt repetitive. But once I heard it in context, it was like, no, it needs to be there. And it's a base for good music. And in my case, I'm talking about storytelling frameworks that are a base for good storytelling.
What is it that fascinates you so much about storytelling? Because I feel like you and I could have a storytelling conversation for like 10 hours. So what draws you to it?
Because I'm human. And I know it sounds like I'm being flippant and like, what are you talking about? Because I'm human and I feel. So I think, and I say that like everybody should be feeling the same way I do about it. And I don't know if everybody realizes it or cares about it as much, obviously. And of course, it depends in the room you're in and who you're talking to. And some go, I don't care about story. I care about making sure it looks good. That's fine. But at the end of the day, do you not go home and watch something or enjoy something that makes you feel? Something has to make you feel. And I at the heart, I'm a very emotive person in my day-to-day life, whether it's like enjoying content, making content, or just living my life with my family. So, it's all about emotion. And I love to explore the myriad of emotions that makes us human. So I think storytelling allows us to explore some emotions that I'd rather not feel in real life, but I'm okay to experience it in this confined structure that allows me to experience fear, sadness, extreme happiness or whatever, yep. But for a finite period of time and in a controlled environment. And that in itself is an interesting point, because I don't know if I totally believe what I'm saying right now. I want to feel that in real life too. But I think everything, as soon as I close my eyes, everything ceases to exist around me. If I close my ears and my eyes, all my senses, everything is just up here anyways. And every feeling, I feel my finger in my temple right now, is just my brain translating those nerve endings into a feeling of my temple being touched by my finger. So how much of this really exists? So all that stuff that you feel in storytelling, how much of it is real, and how much of what's in real life is real? And now I'm getting deep into
in metaphysical,
Aurelius, and Stoicism, and
you took on my jam.
See, and that's where I get a bit excited. It's like, what are we? And who are we as humans? So why do I like storytelling? Because it makes me human. It reminds me of how human I am.
Yeah. I have a lovely one-line horror story kind of situation that I often will spring on Trish, and I'll just and she hates it because I'll be like, are you not certain? Are you certain that you're here right now? Or are you in a room in a corner, tied, strapped up, bouncing off of a wall? And she's just like, because she knows, because it's a metaphysical thing. It's like, am I actually stuck in my own head, or is this real? Right? And I feel like that's the part that makes it so good is the confusion and the so much. I don't think our minds are able to comprehend everything, right? Which is a good thing, because now you have to focus in on one thing, and then that's where the stories can really flow, and you can then direct people. And like you said, make people feel a certain thing. Like you can make someone feel something that they have felt before, or you can rekindle a feeling that they felt before long, long time ago where they don't remember it fully. And then suddenly this deep feeling comes from the past, and I can't put my finger on where that's from, but you made me feel that, right? And that's
nostalgia is a powerful emotion.
Powerful thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what you do with Trish is what my dad used to do to me. And now I do to my kids. So I'll say how do you, if we could be argued about anything, as well, your point's moot anyways, because you don't exist.
Yeah.
I'm like, what do you mean I don't exist? He goes, you're a figment of my imagination.
Yeah. How do you argue with that though?
And I say, but I do exist, prove it. I said, well, if I leave the room, record myself, and bring the recording, you can see that and he's like, that recording is just a figment of it's all a figment of my imagination. You are all made up in my head. What makes it makes me a bit emotional thinking about, it was infuriating when Dad would do that. But now my dad is in very late stages of Alzheimer's right now. So he's, he doesn't speak. It was his birthday yesterday, and he smiled when he saw me on the FaceTime call. And he nodded yes at a few things, but most of the time those are few and far between, those moments. And I'm reminded of those conversations we had. And part of me wishes that in his world, everything's just fine. And he's created created all this, and we are figments of his imagination, and he's just fine where he is right now.
And that's the hardest part, is you can never fully understand what it's like to be in someone else's mind.
No.
Right. And I think we try as artists is to give people glimpses into our minds and be like, hey, check, this is how I feel about this, and there's some similarities because you're all in a similar environment. So
my brother said this years ago. When he's a musician, he makes music, and which most musicians do. and he said when he was just learning the tools, and he's a lifelong learner of the tools, guitar, keyboard, synthesizers, all kinds of peripherals that help not create the music that he wants to create, but more interpret what is going on here. So he said, if I could just have a plug that I could put in my brain and then plug into a speaker and you could hear the sounds I'm hearing, that's what I'm trying to get to with all these peripherals. Whether it's the keyboard, the stringed instrument, the synthesizer, whatever peripheral, it's all a tool to get out what's in here. And I remember saying that, that's really interesting. And the more time I've spent in teaching content creation, storytelling, etc., the more I'm reminded of that notion of all that we're doing is trying to get that vision in our mind. Everybody who is creating content, hopefully, is trying to convey a thought, something that's going on here. And how do we, through these appendages or our whatever we use, the tools we use to get that vision out, how close are we to it? Like David Lynch is a great example of somebody like, what is going on in his head?
I love David
and
Lynch.
He is, when people talk, when you have a dream, you wake up from a dream and you start conveying that dream. And as you're saying it out loud, the limits of language and the limitations of how you can convey what it is you just experienced, you start to go, there's no point in trying to explain this. I can't. David Lynch, funny enough, David Lynch is the closest I think that somebody comes to harnessing and explaining that dream world. Like Lost Highway, if somebody starts to explain to me what Lost Highway is about, I'm like, oh yeah? Really? And just when they think they got, if you're watching one of David Lynch's films, like Lost Highway is a good example, I think. And or Inland Empire? Well, anyways, you try and figure it out. And then as soon as you try and figure it out, he just is like, wait, what just happened? I thought it was, yeah, you thought it was. And then why did it suddenly switch? It's dream world, man. And he's just trying to convey what's going on up there. And I think if you don't appreciate David Lynch, you're missing out on genius.
Yeah. I just love watching his offset meltdowns.
Especially with execs.
Oh, exactly. He's like, why this is stupid. We own the studio. Sitting down to Brady. He's like, well, this costs, and I'm like, I get that too, but I'm with David on this one. So. Yeah. The creative gap, right? So that's the thing between your head and between the thing that you put on screen or paper or whatever it is. It's a creative fight, right? Like we're trying to bring down that gap as much as possible. So there's usually a beginning to this. Like, where did you get started in your creative journey where you were like, I want to do this. This is going to be something I'm going to dedicate my entire time, effort, being to. Like, when did this all really start with you?
I mean, it's different stages. And, in my life, I've used the word, and recently I stopped using the word pivot, and I start using the word transition, right? Because pivoting means you're turning away from something and towards something else. And I think that's the wrong way to look at, specifically in my life anyways, and I think a lot of people should think about this as well. You're not turning away from what was behind, was part of the journey to get to what's ahead. So when I was 12, I was asked by my mother was asked by another friend of mine's mother, would your son be interested or would you be interested in having your son audition for a show on Radio-Canada in Montreal?
You were acting?
Acting. Well, I wasn't an actor, but they were looking for, non-union, inexperienced, just kids to act in this show. And it wasn't scripted. The show was a 15-minute show called Les Pèlerins, which was like the pioneers, basically. And it was an artsy kid show, Sunday mornings from 10 to 10:15 on Radio-Canada. And of course, my mom asked me, I said, sure. And out of the group of us, I think it was just myself and one other of my friends were in it that got accepted to do this. And there's about 6 of us. And there was this guy, Claude Lafontaine, he was an arts and crafts guy. And there'd be narration in French about, say, Jean Cabot or some sort of Canadian historian. And there'd be the story of their life. And he would fold paper, a snowflake kind of thing, and then cut it and then open it up. But instead of a snowflake, it would be a castle or it'd be some or something. He was a genius at his art. And we'd watch him intently while he did this. And it would be part of the visual of the storytelling of these historical figures.
Is this the ongoing payoff? Because I know how we have that today where you'll start something and you're doing something on camera And the person, even if the story is not really captivating the people, they're watching the thing to see the payoff.
Yes, and it was that.
Yeah.
And then there would be little bits where we would act out, scenes from their lives, the history of their lives. Like Jean Cabot, I played Jean Cabot in this particular episode. And when he was young, he used to do magic tricks for people. And I had to do this magic trick, which the props guy and I were the only ones who knew about this magic trick. And whereas I folded up this paper and there's a little secret pocket and I pulled a streamer out of stuff. And the reaction of the kids was natural. Okay, all this to be said, it was my first foray into a creative endeavor. I was just a school kid. I was just getting into swimming. That was about it. I like geography. I like sports. And I got a chance to be on the show. And it lasted a couple months. It was a summer gig. It was fun. And that was the end of that. And it was like, oh, that was cool. And then years went by and I was thinking, different things I could be, accounting, banker. I wanted to be around the money because my dad was an economist. I wanted to be around the money. And then I went to university in Virginia thinking that I was going to be something in that regard, money-wise. But I was there for sports and other things related to sports. And it didn't last very long. And then
sports is a young man's game.
It definitely is, especially you're talking to a 56-year-old with ankle and knee replacement. But I then came back to Toronto and was trying to figure out what I want to do. And one of the things I did with my friends, and I'm known for with my friends, is voices, different accents or whatever. So my friend's girlfriend, now wife, called me up and said, hey, there's this ad for this National Institute of Broadcasting in Toronto is looking for voice actors and they'll train you, whatever, you audition. And if you get picked, you get to do this, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, sure, I'll try that. So I called the number over the phone, like, you're perfect. Yeah, whatever. So I went to this place and of course you spend like several $1,000s and they train you how to use your voice. I did it. And very quickly I realized this is just a money-making scam. Jim Carrey did it apparently. Lauren Green at one time when it was way back when did it. And I was like, I need to find something legitimate because this is interesting and maybe this is a route I want to go. And I found out Ryerson, now Toronto Metropolitan University, had a radio and television arts program where you could pursue that. And I thought, I'll pursue radio. So I went and then I presented my grades at the registrar's office. Like, you're not going to get in with those grades. I said, what are my options? And one of the options was to take a year of diploma in arts. And I said, I'll do that. And then they said, well, there's no guarantee that you can laterally move in. You have to, improve and I did. And, long story short, I got into that program and radio was interesting in first year. And then TV was second year and third year specialization. TV grabbed me. And that's how I got into it. And the realization that at that point, when I started making content in class, and it was just cool shots or cool, funny ideas. I was just trying to be funny most of the time with the ideas we did. But what hit me was, I don't want to just create something, make them laugh, and then it's gone. I want to create content that when the credits are over, the conversation starts, and to have something last beyond that, right? And that became sort of my goal. And my goal was to be a filmmaker who created these films that were talked about. Like, I've been a fan and remain a fan. And these guys know my favorite movie of all time, by far, Lawrence of Arabia. And it is a movie that I've watched literally over 100 times. And I know it's a long movie, but I love it. I'll watch sometimes just the opening. Sometimes I'll just watch one particular scene. And sometimes I'll sit there and watch the full 3 hour and 45 minutes of this great epic film, which is one of the best stories ever told, in my opinion. And it uses a framework that is so classic and so perfect. And I thought, that's the kind of content I want to make. Something that people can watch over and over again and feel every time and talk about it afterwards. So when I met a good friend of mine, who ended up being the best man at my wedding, he and I would go to what we called Canada's favorite beach house. And it was the cinema in the beaches, which usually would show more artsy films. And we'd go there, watch a film, and then we'd go to a bar called the Seventh Wave, have a couple of pitchers of Heineken, and talk about the film, whether it was good or bad. And most of the time it would be something good. And we'd have these ongoing conversations. A lot of time we, joking about the film, whatever. But I was like, man, I'd love to create content that does that creates conversation, that extends the conversation beyond the credits. And I never made that film. But what I did do is get into TV in a way, like at YTV, where I really started, my first 5 years of my career were just YTV. It was, in retrospect, we were babysitting kids. Parents could plop their kids in front of the TV and they know they'd be entertained for the next however long. But the content we did make was entertaining, and I still say this to this day, the content I like to make is like a Trojan horse kind of idea. where it's edutainment, infotainment, whatever you want to call it. And it's a combination of, we're going to entertain you, but we're going to sneak in some information or some knowledge or some education in there, whether you like it or not. And you won't realize it. And
that's a really strong thing to have in today's world too, because I find a lot of people are really good at giving information, right? They either can give value, but they're not able to hook them in, or they're just in there for the entertainment, right? Like I look at like the Mr. Beast is a great example of like, he's done phenomenally for himself, but he used basically brute force algorithm hacking to get there, right? We just did it over and over and over again, to go better and better.
Lots of patience on his part.
Lots of patience, right? So
I think the idea of, let's make sure it's first and foremost entertaining. Let's get them in, get them in the tent, and then provide the information without it being, didactic, bashing over the head. We're teaching you something. And I think where I finally achieved a level of like pride in that regard, it wasn't the big film, that I made or anything. It was the series I did at CBC, which was a kids sports show called POV Sports. It wasn't a huge success. I mean, we're nominated for, I think, a total of like 4 Canadian Screen Awards. A lot of kudos from athletes who, I remember Alexa Liu, who was a Canadian snowboarder. She was the captain of the Canadian snowboard team. Very intellectual. And sort of not anti-media, but sort of like, I'm not doing this, I don't do this interview just for the sake of whatever. I want to talk about, safety, concussion safety and all that, blah, blah. And there was a lot of like lesson learning whenever we interviewed her. But when she saw what we did with her piece, for instance, and then she saw the whole show, she goes, I don't watch this kind of TV, but I watch your show because I'm entertained and I walk away informed. Yeah. And I use that testimonial for season 2. To prove that, hey, we have something here, executives, and we can, and that notion was repeated, was mirrored by quite a few people who said, I watch your show. I'm not into sports, but I watch your show and I learn something every time I watch. I'm entertained first and foremost. I look back on it and it was like that, that early 2000s, late 90s style of like, frenetic, like high energy, lots of cuts, like Dutch angles, whatever, lots of camera movement. And it makes me seasick now to look at that kind of stuff. But it answered to the vibe of the day. Yeah. And it answered to the audience we were trying to grab. And basically it was like, get off the couch and try something new. Watch our show for half an hour. Yep. But then get off the couch and try fucking doing something different other than the regular 4, baseball, football, hockey, and soccer. We're going to introduce you to other sports. We had an athlete who came to us years later and said, I forget her name and I wish I could remember her name. She won a gold medal in trampoline when trampoline was introduced as an Olympic sport. She got into trampolining because she saw our show.
That's pretty wild, isn't it?
So yeah. And so making those kind of connections, I guess that's on a smaller scale. What my goal was when I first started thinking about making content and like, I want to make something that where the conversation continues later on. Yeah. Well, this isn't just a conversation. This is changing somebody's trajectory. Yeah. And they chose a path with great success. And they know exactly why. They can pinpoint that seminal moment that led them in that direction. That doesn't happen often. And I don't know if a lot of people can say the same, but that was my goal in a different way. And it wasn't until even when I heard that, I was cool, but I didn't think of, that's kind of like the goal I had of making my, my film. I didn't think it until years later. I was like, wait a minute, I did achieve that. And since have in a different way. Now, when, the transition from, that first time in TV and then eventually getting back into it and realizing this is what I really am good at, what I can do, and then being recognized for that work and then being paid to travel the world and do cool things with cool people. I mean, that's a dream, right? Never, that whole line of you never work a day in your life, but you get paid to do this stuff. And then the transition, I used to call it the pivot to education, to academia. Everything prior was a path and a preparation to the education portion. And I had to learn to be a proper educator. The first few years I was teaching, yeah, I mean, like there's some people I would like to apologize. I'd like to apologize to you for the teacher I was, the professor I was, the guide, the mentor I was. I think I over the years, I improved. Yeah. And then there's a point where just like in my industry experience, where I thought I was all that. And then I realized, oh no, there's still a lot to learn. Just getting started. And now I'm at a stage where I'm transitioning out of that phase of institutionalized academia, and now I'm transitioning. I won't say pivot to a different form of academia where I'm in total control
of the distribution,
and of the way I'm going to convey it. I don't have to adhere to this ministry mandated outline. I can throw that. I used to throw it over my shoulder anyways.
Yep.
Don't care what you think. And I would teach what I knew was important. Yep. And so now, instead of like the conversations or the person saying, because of you, I got in the sport, now I'm getting like, people saying, because of you, I have this job, or because of you, I have this different mindset, or I the other day I was doing this and I thought of you because of what you taught me in that one lesson.
Yeah.
And that to me, that's huge. When a grad invites me to their wedding, that to me says a heck of a lot. And there's one over there.
There's a few grads.
There's a few grads here.
Yeah.
But when you have friendships beyond, that to me is way more important to me. I'll get emotional now, but way more important to me than any of those stupid pieces of paper that are framed in my office. And I say stupid, they're not. I have some awards like whether WorldFest Houston or Canadian Screen Awards that they are meaningful to me. But not because of the piece of paper or that work, but the people that I met and worked with and those touchstones to those moments. So it goes back to, what effect do I have? What do I leave? It's good storytelling, to bring it back to storytelling. Good storytelling, at the end of the day, it's not the facts you remember, it's the emotion that you feel and the intended emotion. Is it the right emotion? If I meant to make you laugh and you cried, I fucking failed, man.
Yeah.
But if I intended to make you laugh and you laughed, or I intended to make you cry and you cried, success. And I think good storytelling is just that. What's the intention and what's the result?
When you, because you're transitioning from kind of institutional education to kind of freelance education, I guess we can call it that.
Call it that for now. Yeah, sure.
What does that feel like?
I'm in that dust, crazy maelstrom stage right now. The chaos stage. I shouldn't say chaos. It is controlled chaos. I mean, I'm experienced enough to understand that the stage I'm at is going to feel like that, but it is necessary in order to sort of figure out where is it I'm going to land. I've been laid off. And it's the plan was to eventually like pull the trigger myself before the time when I would be collecting full pension. I wasn't planning on staying until 2034.
How many years were you until a full pension?
Full pension, another 8 years probably. Yeah. So
you had a little bit of a track still to go.
Yeah, but I wasn't planning on carrying out those full 8 years. I knew I was starting something, the Story Architects, which is something I've started. The intent was to get that up and running, to gain some traction. And once it reached a certain level, then pull the trigger and go, okay, I'm out and I'm going to pursue this now. Yep. Well, it's sort of been forced upon me with the budget cuts and all that, blah, blah. I'm a result of that, the layoff. So, now it's, okay, it's not what do I do? Yeah. It's what else do I do in the meantime while I get that up and running? And it's not, I don't know what to do. It's, I'm sort of like, there's a bunch of different things I can do. And I'm in the midst right now of exploring them. In fact, earlier today, I was in a meeting with somebody discussing opportunities that we could, combine efforts. And very fruitful meeting. And I'm going to have another one next week. And I'm going to have plenty more. And by the time I'm actually done at the college, which is another few months away, I'm hoping to have things in place. So how does it feel right now? It feels like it's all up in the air. Yep. But it's not like I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what to catch.
You're seasoned enough to know that, this happens.
It's finite.
Yep.
This period of time,
yep,
this transitional time is finite. Yep. But what I learned in academia, which I didn't know before, is this idea of lifelong learning. And I think those moments I mentioned.
That's a very educator babble, by the way.
It is.
Lifelong learning is a very educator babble stuff.
But I think it applies way beyond just, I think it's something that we should understand and appreciate. It's like the moment you think you know it is the moment you're probably going to stumble. So, it's good to be good at what you're at, to be good at what you're good at, but to also understand that there's still much to learn. And I have colleagues that taught me that, especially I think of Claude Gariepy. Yep. Like, the master of camera and lighting as far as I'm concerned. And I think many people are concerned. And that guy, every time he'd deliver something that he shot to a producer he'd worked with for 30 years, to this day, he'll then call the next day or when the edit's over, he goes, okay, what can I do better next time? And they go, shut up, Claude. And they'd hang out. And he's like, no, I need to, what can I do better? And he means it. Yep. He really means it. And I think that post-mortem, that sort of like that idea of debriefing every time you do something is so important to continuously grow and continuously improve. If you think I've achieved it, I'm good, and I've done that twice in my life, and I'm lucky that I was at a place that I had a safety net to fall back on, and then pick myself up and go, okay, you don't know it all. I did that once in industry, and I had a great mentor, Chris Greaves, who shook his finger at me, and my punishment was I didn't get to go to San Diego to Comic-Con that year. I was like, why? And he sat me down and said, this is why. Because you think your shit don't stink.
Yeah.
And you can't think like that. I mean, he didn't say those exact words, but pretty much that was the vibe. And I was like, he's right. And then in academia, I think 2013, 14, where I thought, I can just wing it. And yeah, I can, but I could be better.
Yeah.
And so when I started like really, adhering to lesson planning and the story arc of my semester, then, things got better. And then it was like, you know what? It can still get better. It can still get better, and it will always get better.
Yeah. So we're in your story arc right now. There's a bit of a dip coming up, right? Mm-hmm. So how do you...
I'm in the dip. I'm in the dip.
You're in the dip right now? You're not on the drop right now?
Well, I think the drop happened 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
Was a precipitous drop all of a sudden.
So there's like that bottom there where it's going to be where you like... I always call it the valley of despair, right? Which is like, okay, what do we do now?
I know what you're saying.
Right? So,
yep.
So how do you go from, okay, we're making this change to, okay, how do I think positively and how do I align all of my skill sets to apply to story architects right now? Like, what's your kind of like, game plan on that?
Plan, consistency, repetition. And I've been in the planning stages and the consistency and the whole idea of repetition with story architects prior to the precipitous fall. So I had a bit of a leg up. There are a few of my colleagues who did not. They were blindsided. Some of them were afraid this was going to happen, but didn't prepare.
Yep.
I can say, fortunately, that one of them who was very, very down, who really fell precipitously in here, recently had a great conversation with somebody who said, why don't you talk to some friends about what they think you'd be good at outside of this?
Yep.
And one of the ideas that was presented to her, she's like, ping, the light went off, and she's already exploring the education in order to get that going. And it's a short-term sort of like learning curve. And then she can start doing this whole new thing that is right up her alley. I don't want to get into details.
Well, yeah. And reinvention is, unfortunately, it's become more commonplace today's world. Because like if you go back 10 years ago, people would still even be on their careers to the end of their lives, right? And now we're seeing with the just the accelerated pace of technology, it's displacing entire fields. And we're seeing that happen in lifetime right now. And so everyone's had to change the way they approach things. Everyone's had to change the way they do things. What are some of the things that you want to take from the traditional education and implement? And what are some of the new age education where you're like, we need to double down on this, right? So like blending those two together.
It's a good question. So taking from, acknowledged, established pedagogy, there is stuff to take. And I say that and I close my eyes this way because I think there's a little bit of and not because of what recently happened. It's just that there's a lot of pedagogical poop out there. When I was just talking about that this morning with my wife, there was a colleague I had. And I remember sitting in her office one day, and she's, don't you have a class in 5 minutes? And I'm like, yeah. And it was a course that I knew like the back of my hand. And I'm like, yeah, what am I going to talk about today? And this is before I started this is where I was thinking my shit don't stink. It was okay. But anyways, she said, like, oh, you're not prepped? I'm like, no, hold on. No, I got it. I know what I'm going to do for the next 2 hours.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a gong show. So 2 hours later, I walked back in the office. She's like, how'd that go? I'm like, perfect. We did this, and this. We covered this, and this. And they got on that. I got them going on this, and da-da-da. And it was great. And everybody walked out happy. And she's like, you asshole. I spent 3 hours prepping for a 1 hour class. Yep. And this person was really heavily into the pedagogical poop.
Yep.
And now that person, look, kudos to that person because they're now senior executive at another institution out east. And they went from, being a professor to a chair to a dean to now where they are.
Yep.
And they've done well. But they're I wouldn't say lost, but they're immersed in the pedagogical poop world, where it's like all acronyms and this study says that and that study says this, And I do not apply that. I don't know if this is answering your question, but I believe in, and this is where Claude and I were on the exact same page. This is the course outline. This is the pedagogical poop. We show this in the first day and then we go, see that? Okay. Now we're going to show you what it really takes to make it in this industry, in this particular course, doing this particular métier, this particular whatever endeavor. And
the métier. We can switch into French and really confuse people.
Yeah. Let's not do that. Or Greek or whatever. But I think there is an element of pedagogy, of institutionalized academia, or at least how to teach somebody. You got to have that basic level. My colleague, Ben Forgy, for instance, I think is the best teacher I know.
I would not disagree.
He may not have the extensive, industry background that Claude or myself have, but he knows how to teach. He knows how to lesson plan. He knows how to deliver 14 weeks of something and deliver it solidly and meet the learning outcomes.
Yeah, he actually helped me a ton when I was teaching there, right? Because I was just like, I don't know what to do here. Like, I've got lessons here that, I've got like one sheet of paper that I have to make into 14 weeks.
Yep.
And, half of this stuff is not applicable anymore.
Right.
And they're just like, he's like, well, I'll just kind of float around. I'm like, okay, can I just float around it and actually give them actionable stuff? Because I'd like them to walk out of here and have some chance.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I can never give them 100% chance. That's never going to work. No, the content I can give them is based on what I know works.
Yeah.
And what I've seen, as long as you can scale it in the right manner, then you're going to be successful.
Yeah.
But it's on you. It's not on me. And it's like, that was my opening line with them. It's like, hey guys, like, I'm going to teach you how to do this. If you don't want to listen, that's fine. Absolutely fine. But understand that this is the stuff that gets you the paycheck.
Right.
Like, if not, like, go and get a paycheck. That's great. But this is more for people who are freelancing and they're going out there and they're in this industry. It's tough. It's dog eat dog. And if you don't know what you're doing, it's going to eat you up. Right.
So what Ben taught me and what the other educators I learned from around me taught me was structure.
Yep.
And in order to learn, you have to have some sort of structure. Like a good story, you have to have some sort of solid framework. So the framework of building a semester, there's a framework there. The syllabus, the way you design and the way you deliver, there is intention with that. And you have to think about VLOs, vocational learning outcomes, course learning outcomes, essential employability skills. All that pedagogical poop. But there's a reason why it exists. I think people get too bogged down in all that bullshit. I say bullshit because when you start thinking too much on that end of things, you sort of lose the plot.
It's metrics.
What are we doing here?
It's metrics.
That's
all it is.
And when at an open house, or I meet a parent or a family and they go, will my child be employed? Will my child get a job in this industry? My answer is going to be, how long is a string?
Yeah.
You look at me, huh? I'm like, well, it all depends. Depends on them. I will provide this information. I will provide the tools and the knowledge on how to use those tools. It is up to them to apply that knowledge. And that's so cliche, but that's the bottom line. So what I take away from institutionalized pedagogy is structure to a certain degree without getting bogged down in the minutia. We should be bogged down in the minutia of the actual thing, not the learning of the thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%.
So and that's why when Claude and I would go, this is the course outline. Now we're going to show you what really works in the industry. And I think there's a few people here that would probably agree that when Claude taught them, they knew they were hearing from somebody who actually did the shit and not somebody who read about it and regurgitated it. And I think there's too many people in institutionalized academia who are just regurgitators and not people who are applying what they experienced and sharing that knowledge. So for me, when I tell somebody this is the story, roller coaster that I'm teaching you, it's not the story roller coaster. And there's the whale that people say, oh, that's just the whale, or that's this. I've learned a story roller coaster in my English literature class. Sure, you have. I know you have. Absolutely. But when somebody said this is industry standard, I'm like, no, but they said at CBC, CTV, YTV, Global, everybody said this is industry standard, those who were just at that one place.
Yep.
What I did was, as somebody who worked at different places, was collect best practices, amalgamate that knowledge into what I present to the students. And that to me is the best way I can convey what I experienced, is just to collect best practices, make it into one cohesive syllabus, and present that. And not something that's being mandated by somebody in ivory tower who's never been in the field or even in the industry.
Yeah, but I got to check the box.
Yeah, I got to check box. So I will do the best box checking I can in order to make them happy. But I'm not answering to, I know I have to answer to them. I don't have to anymore. I'm answering to them. I'm answering to you out there. I'm answering, and you want to know if you can get a job? Learn from me, and I'll show you what's worked at various places, at various stages, with various types of storytelling. And the amalgamated knowledge from those various experiences at various institutions, broadcasters, small broadcasters, production companies, etc., and different camera people I've worked with, different editors I've worked with, who've in turn worked with different people. Oh, sorry, I just hit your mic there, Aiden.
Aiden loves it. It wakes him up.
Those experiences, when I put them all together, I know with certainty what I'm conveying works out there and not from a book.
I still maintain, in order to be successful, right? Because there's a lot of mentors out there, there's a lot of coaches out there, and I kind of want to, I want to target coaches for a second here.
Yeah, okay, good.
The only coaches that I will care to listen to are the people that have done what I've wanted to do or are actively doing it.
Right.
And if they've done what I want to do, was it in the last 5 years? Because you and I both know that half a decade might as well be a century now.
Especially in our industry.
Yeah, and it's like, also, if you're at the top of your field, you've already become disconnected with what happens at the bottom line.
It's like stocks.
Yeah, it's like, if you're used to working at this level, well, you had all these roles you had to go through, and you've probably forgotten, because that was a 15, 20-year journey, plus you got another 5 years you're out of the business, and now you're coaching me? Like, there's a lot of coaches out there now who claim that they will get your business to the next level, that will take your, and it's just like, sit there, and I'm just like, okay, I run a advertising agency, right? How do I grow it? And they're like, well, I'll just like take my course. And I'm like, yeah, you're trying to sell me something. I understand that. I'm in advertising. I understand what advertising is. Give me your one line that's going to make me want to buy your thing. Well, we can make you more. How? Right? And it was when you get into that how, that's when everything starts to fall apart usually. And that's when you can tell where
unless they truly are good at what they do and they have an answer to that.
Yes.
And that's the whole point. You should have an answer to that.
Yeah.
And what kills me, this is why I'm smiling and laughing, is how many, especially in what I'm doing with Story Architects, the amount now of online gurus who are 19, 20, 21 years old trying to solicit their expertise and have me buy into that. I do have a counter to that, but it's laughable. Because when I was doing what you're teaching me, you weren't even a glimmer in your father's eye. Now that's old. That's old age talking. That's
you're ageist.
I'm ageist. I know, reverse ageist. But the counter to that is my partner, my business partner, who guides me, who mentors me in the certain aspects of what this social media world. Storytelling is storytelling is storytelling, and the what I teach can be condensed and filtered through the social media lens.
Absolutely.
But there's certain strategizing and marketing that I'm not aware of. But this 28, 29-year-old is a master at it because he's been doing it for 7, 8 years. And I say he's working with the top people. I'm not going to say names because I don't know privacy if he wants me to say his name, but the people he's working with, off camera, I'll tell you their names. They're way up there. Okay. And he's got his finger on the pulse of what is working now. And those gurus, anointed gurus, they're the ones who are admitting that they're regurgitating what they learned from those people he's working with directly. So I don't need the fucking guru, the 20-year-old tell me how to do this. I've got my own 28-year-old who'll tell me what to do. So I do respect the knowledge of those who've come after me in time, but who are in that world that I wasn't in and that I'm now immersing myself in. And that to me is what a good producer does, is you surround yourself, like Ash, you've surrounded yourself with people who are better than you at certain things.
100% of most things. Yeah, I don't know half of what goes on set.
Nor should you.
Chris can absolutely, dance circles around me when it comes to anything lighting, anything grip, anything, fishing.
But as long as you don't step on his toes and go, well, I think it'd be better if do you? When you ignore, and I know you don't, at least I haven't heard you do lately.
No, I'm pretty good. I'm a big believer in putting the right people in the right seats. And so there's a wonderful book called Traction. It's a very dry book. It's academia to the nines, but it's like one of those books where you read it once and you learn it and it just sticks. And it was about putting people in the right seats. And if they're not in the right seats, moving them into the right seat. And if you don't have the right seat, then letting them go, because it's the kindest thing that you can do for them. That's a tough one for a lot of people, because now you're really looking at, you're not just looking at output. You're looking at, yes, you can output the thing, but if you're not good there. If you as a person are not, growing, that's not a good seat for you. Right. And so seeing people in their seats, in the right seats, right, where they love audio, they love lighting, whatever, you can see it. And if you put them together,
you can feel that energy.
Like as a director, if you put them all together, it's just magic. Because then you can just sit there and be like, I know nothing about, the tripods and the cameras and all that. But
you have to have the confidence in yourself knowing, okay, this is my wheelhouse.
Yep.
And I'm confident with what I know. And I'm confident in recognizing what others know in their wheelhouse. And I'm confident enough. And I'm not going to get caught up in they know more than I. Oh boy, I better be tough guy. I better be a dictator. And I currently work with somebody like that. And they think they know it all. And because of their fear of being found out, they are living day-to-day imposter syndrome. And I don't even know if they realize it themselves.
Yeah.
And it's when you can accept that, no, I'm acquiescing to you because you know better. I'm 56, you're 28, but you know better about this. I'm acquiescing to you. So here's a guy who was in my class taking notes, 8-9 years ago, and now I'm in a Google meeting with him, taking notes as he talks to me about what I need to do, and I totally accept that because I recognize that's within his wheelhouse that I don't exist in, and I'm learning from. So I think that's the whole idea. We go back to that pedagogical line, lifelong learning. We should always be thinking that there is somebody who knows better regardless of their age. But going back to your point about these online gurus who claim this and claim that, buy my $10,000 course and I'll make your business double or triple or 10x.
Yep. I always find that the stronger the promise is, the bigger the bullshit. It's just how it's like, oh, we're going to make sure we do this. And I've seen a ton of them. Right. And so I love when people are just honest and open. And my favorite groups, very similar to like the story architect. So the groups that you can go into and have conversations with not only the person running the group, but also the students in the group.
Yep.
Because the good conversations happen there, by the way. Like that's
what I'm trying to create with story architect.
I love that. I think like the core concept beneath it is fantastic. There's obviously a need and a want in the world, right? So now it's just a case of like spreading the message enough to get story architects out there where people can say, I want to be a part of that group and I'm going to learn and I'm going to grow and then I'm going to connect. Because I think the magic of film school is the connection.
The networking.
It's the networking.
Yeah,
right? And the magic of business is networking. And it's just understanding that who to get to. And I have like one of my favorite sayings is just be closer to the handshake, right? So like be closer to where the deal gets made. If you can do that, it doesn't matter what scale you're at, you'll always be successful. Right. So you talk about owning the distribution. Well, the distribution is the handshake right there. So that you are the closest to the handshake you can be there by operating at the distribution level. And that's exciting.
That's very exciting.
Yeah.
And to me, the way I think of it this way is there's a line.
Yep.
It's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yep.
It doesn't end there. To me, it's not what you know, it's not who you know. It's most importantly, who knows you. So you need to get out there and network, but be known. Not just meet people and get their card, but make an impression and have them remember you. I'm lucky. I have a name that you like. It's pretty easy to remember. You hear my name, it rolls off the tongue. I'm happy. Thanks, Mom and Dad. Paul Papadopoulos is just it rolls off the tongue. You don't forget it. But, you also have to have a personality. You have to have some value that you bring to the table and remind people of that value or show that value right off the top. Leave an impression so that they know you. You're important. I know you. Doesn't mean you know me and I'm going to get a job out of you. I can say, look at my Rolodex of these people I met. Yeah, but do they have in turn your information?
Know you? Yeah.
Then they'll know you. So I think it's important to not only know what you know, sure, to know somebody, but do they know you?
I think this is a beautiful segue into something I've been wanting to talk to somebody about, but not known who to talk to about.
Oh boy.
Building an online personal brand is a deeply vulnerable and difficult thing to do.
Absolutely.
And it is at first it's exciting because you're like, I'm going to put my name out there. It's going to be, people are going to get to know my name and show it. But then when you get out there, there's this big open ocean of like a whole bunch of people. And then you're just kind of stuck there throwing out, content into the void to start, right? So you're telling your stories that way. What do you think is the best way for someone to identify their je ne sais quoi into the world today? Like what do they bring to the table? Like how do people identify that? Like how do they find their story?
You have to have conversations with people. And I think the first place is like the people immediately around you. And the people immediately around you who are willing to tell you, no, that's not right. That's not you. Who am I to you? And I fortunately, I don't necessarily have to have that because I've honed the idea of who I am every orientation day through first year. And then in second and third year, when I taught students, like, we get to know each other's first name, and then we're just being ourselves. Yep. And that's the key thing, getting to the ourselves portion. So I was always, and still am to a degree, but much less and less as time progresses, was most nervous when I first met that student the very first day and introduced myself to that first class, because I have to make that first impression. And over time, of course, I still get nervous. I get, rivulets of sweat running down my back. They don't know it.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
You've been teaching a few years now.
I've been teaching 15 years.
Yeah.
15 years. And before that, being a director on set, I remember showing up to Crisco commercial. And prior to that, biggest crew I dealt with was maybe 10 people, on average 4 or 5 people. But then it was 10 people. And then that Crisco commercial, 60 people.
Holy, that's a big jump.
It was a big jump. And I was like, but then I quickly realized, well, I'm talking to department heads who are in turn talking to their people. So really I'm talking to 4 or 5 people, plus the talent. Even the talent, there's an AD who's dealing with the talent, and I'm dealing with the on-camera talent at that time, while the rest of them are in a holding pen somewhere doing whatever they're doing, right? It was kinder than that.
Yeah. But like you're saying, I've been on this.
So my career, again, I talk about transition, not pivots. My career in industry allowed me to be able to talk to groups of people. And then in academia, you're talking to groups of people. And from first to third year, when we were a 3-year program, I was very nervous with those people. But I was introducing myself. I was establishing my brand to them, building credibility. So when it got time to actually, okay, I'm telling you this. Once they got to know me, they go, well, we know your background now. We know who you are. We've experienced your teaching. We're now going to trust you. It takes a bit of time to get to that point. You got the label professor. You got underneath the label of whatever institution you're at. So that's the beginning of that credibility. But then in the class, it's just us, man. Yeah. So who are you? And who are you to tell me what this is all about beyond you have professor attached to your name and this bullshit stories that you tell? Well, I got it. So through storytelling, I prove myself. It's not just check out my resume. Here are the facts. I've got to live and breathe it in class. I got to show the work that I've done and incorporate my stories into the lessons I'm trying to teach. And that took a bit of time to get used to. And I still think there's a lot of improvement there. So when it comes time now, at this point where I'm transitioning to, I'm the brand and there's no institution attached. The institution is me. Yep. It's just basically I'm back to stage 1 of that first year with the orientation day, introducing myself. And I think
you're green again.
I'm green again, but I'm not totally green because it's not a pivot. It's a transition. So I'm using all that experience from industry to institutionalized academia, and now being able to apply that. Plus, with a good mentor who is half my age, who is telling me the biggest lesson I'm learning is reps.
100%.
If you want to lose weight, sure, Ozempic, there's a magic injection, pill, whatever. But really, you want to do it healthy? What do you got to do? Reps. How do I build my brand, my personal brand? I got to trust a process. And trust the process is something that I say
we have in our studio.
Right. And I think everybody should adhere to a process. Because if I was to follow my partner's process, and then I start looking at, some guru and on his account, follows his account and says, oh, do this. And I'll go, okay, I'll try that. And then that strays away from the original process. And I got a bit of this process, a bit of that process. And someone may think, well, then you're amalgamating best practices. This is a different approach now. Now you're just dipping your toe in different water. You're never getting there. You're never getting through a process, and you're never going to bring anything to fruition. Mm-hmm. So find a process that works. That's the secret. And then stick to that. And stick to it. So every so often, I'll send something to my partner and say, "What do you think of this?" And he's like, "Well, do you want to do that? Because if you do, then you got to think about the domino effect, blah blah blah." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. Stick to the process. Mm-hmm. Do what I tell my students all the time. So much so, there are 2. Thank you, ladies. By the way, what I'm about to say, there are 2. I'm going to get emotional here again. There's 2 of my students who are going to graduate in a few months, and they asked me to hand draw the story roller coaster the way I draw it, and in my own handwriting, write "trust the process." And they wouldn't tell me why. And I pushed and pushed until they cracked, and they're going to get tattoos. I'm like,
man, that's humbling.
That's humbling, all right. That's like, I'm like, whoa, that hits me. Like I started crying on, right in front of them and everything, because that I was like, that's, how do you put words to that? That's an honor.
I think for that moment, you're feeling truly seen.
And it makes everything worthwhile. When you receive an award for a piece of work you've done, especially in our industry, it's a team thing. And anybody who goes up and goes, I'm great, this is all me, you're full of shit. But when they go, there's so many people to thank, that's real. That's real. Yep. But that's something really personal. And it makes like, those days where I'm like, frustrated with a group of students or one particular student or the dark times, that erases all that shit.
Yep.
And
convinces you into going around again.
Yeah, exactly. and in turn, using my own words and trusting the process and answer your question, how do I build my own brand? Find a process that that has been proven to work, trust it, follow it, rep. So if it's creating content on your channel, on your Instagram account, your TikTok, whatever platform you're on, stick to a process and do the reps, and you'll see results. I'm beginning to.
Yeah.
I think I'm currently at 564 followers on Instagram, which is not huge. I have more on my personal account than I do on the Story Architects one. Yeah. But I say to my partner, like, this feels so slow. What am I doing wrong? He goes, are you kidding? You're killing it. You've only been doing this for a few months. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't feel like it, but he's convincing me that I'm on the right track.
Let me sprinkle
the process.
Let me sprinkle some flavor onto that and say it matters what platform you're on.
Yes.
Right. So you might find some success on Instagram, but then you throw it onto YouTube and your process, like it goes through the roof. Yeah. Because there's different consumption habits for people, right? So like TikTok is for like quick wins, and it should be as low quality as possible.
TikTok is kind of
drives us all nuts because we're beautiful cameras and stuff like that, right? Like Instagram is a nice blend of quick wins with high quality, but then you got YouTube, which is like if you want to tell a longer story. And like people are willing to sit and watch a longer video, right? Some don't, but that's okay because then that's when you bring in the shorts.
It's not about numbers at that point. It's about quality value numbers.
Yeah, exactly.
The ones that are going to convert to actionable or to get into your funnel and actually pay beyond the paywall to get to what it is you're actually trying to convey and sell. And I've only been using shorts so far on YouTube, and one of the first videos I put out there right now is sitting at 191,000 views, and I only started in January. I've got some that are a couple hundred views, and sometimes the algorithm just drives me nuts. It's like the timing, and I forgot to add a title, and then I go back and make the mistake of changing it, and it's like no, don't once it's out there, don't touch it. And that's a whole other thing, the whole strategy and all that. That's what I'm learning from my partner.
It's really rough because, I mean, it's a economics, right? It's like if it's going to work, if the idea is good, then the business, the market will tell you.
Yeah.
And that's a really hard one to learn because you can keep doing the same thing over and over again. And then suddenly the market finds you and then it's good.
Yeah.
But it's only when that market finds you, if the market exists. And that's a really tough kind of waters to be in, because especially when a lot of people are building their content or they're building their business, they're trying to get known and they're trying to get out there, but at the same time, they're trying 5 different ways, all the time different. And it's like, no, start simple, build your framework or your structure, and then over time, by doing it over and over again, say, maybe if we added this, but don't try to modify it too fast, or you might miss out on the one magic piece that allows you to start growing.
Dude,
I'm a master overthinker.
Well, like, and that's what'll fuck you up in this realm, right? Like I have the same exact content on 3 platforms. On TikTok, 431,000. On Instagram, 7,000. And then I have one piece of content on Instagram, 86,000. And on TikTok, less than 3,000.
No, wild.
It doesn't make sense.
Did you post them at the same time?
Yeah.
Same kind of thumbnails? Same everything?
Almost.
Yeah.
A little bit different because of Instagram versus TikTok.
And see, that's when you start to get into those intricacies that you can spend hours. Like we just did, we're building an ad campaign right now. And it's like basically 50 hooks, like I think something like 5 like general content for that. And then like 3 to 5 call to actions. So 750 ads.
Yeah.
Like that's the scale that digital works at now, and it's just it's a really tiresome thing to do, because especially when we get into this industry, we don't get into this industry to count numbers. We get into to tell stories, and then suddenly all these things
That was somebody
matter.
else's job.
Yeah.
I was told, do what you do and keep doing what you do.
Yep.
We'll worry about the numbers. I'm like,
Yep.
cool.
Excellent. Now I can go and make the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's all I want to do is make the thing. So I turn to my partner every so often. I'm like, just point me in the direction and I'll do my
Make
thing.
the thing. Yeah.
But it's such a small team, and there's a lot, more on my plate than what I'm used to in that regard, that I have to think about these things. And thank goodness I have this partner to guide me.
Yeah.
Because without him, I wouldn't have the numbers I have. I wouldn't be anywhere near where I am.
The Story Architects, where do you want it to go? Where's your vision for that?
Okay, so there's multi phases to it. Right now, we're still in the phase of building the brand identity, brand awareness. Who is this guy, and how does he know what he knows? So I'm still in that phase. I think once we get to about 1,000 followers, the idea is to introduce phase 2, which is beginning to funnel more towards the actual community on school.
Yep.
And whatever platform it's on, that's not as important as getting people there.
I would say the school platform is very important, because then you're able to connect to the community, which is the thing that we were talking about.
Yeah, but it could be Patreon, it could be Thinkific, it could be Kajabi. There's different types of platforms. School just happens to be user friendly for myself.
Yep.
And is easy to play with, easy to set up. And a hobbyist is $9.99 a month.
Yep.
Pro is $99.99. And I was advised to start at $9.99 for now and see how it goes. I'm not pushing. I have a handful of paid members, as you know.
Yep.
And I worry about that. And then my partner goes, don't worry about that. We're not there yet to open the funnel up fully.
Yep.
So it's phase 1, awareness. Phase 2, let's open it up. Let's get it going. And then as we build, it'll be, right now there's a storytelling component. There's 15, asynchronous video lessons. There is a parking space for video lessons on film critiquing, where we have banked those videos. They just need to be edited.
Yep.
And then they'll be inserted. And then we'll just expand from there and introduce, camera and lighting, more technical stuff from my partner's side, and we'll just expand it so it's almost like a mini school of a lot of different things. Yeah. That's the plan for the moment. We want to sort of feel the market though at the same time. Maybe we'll adjust as we go.
Yeah.
And maybe we won't need to expand it beyond that. But I want to get that community built. So like you say, it's more of the community members who are helping each other.
Yeah.
Like a bunch of classmates who are making content, and I'm sitting back watching that happen. And every so often going in, need advice? Need a you know what? And let me step in for a second.
Yep.
That's golden. And here's why. One, I'm helping them. And I'm building a network for them, for you. And then eventually I can be at a point where I can be anywhere geographically.
Yep.
As long as I have robust connectivity, I could be swinging in a hammock, whittling a piece of wood, my laptop next to me going, cool, and talking to people, but I'm in I'm in my villa in Costa Rica.
Yeah.
Or I'm in the Philippines, or I'm wherever the heck I want to be. I'm in Porto, in Portugal. I'm somewhere.
Location agnostic.
Exactly. Location agnostic.
That's what I say. That's what I use for the whole concept behind AMP was to be location agnostic.
Yeah.
So as we grow, basically, it doesn't matter where you are, because the skill sets that we bring to the table are not necessarily geographically bound.
Yeah. So, and beyond that is there's the idea of perhaps we become and again, we're going to see where it goes. This is fluid. It's very organic. So the end goal is maybe we are an agency, but instead of just we are the agency and it's 4 or 5 people, or I have a network of people, and that's more the idea. These people are going to be from different corners of the world.
Yep.
I've helped mentor them and guide them so that I know they have they come in typically, I think the core member is somebody who has the technical chops. They know how to swing a camera. They know how to swing a light. They know how to do audio. They know all the technical aspects, editing and so on. They can make it look pretty, but they're lacking that storytelling. So I bring that one element to complete them. Yep. And then I know they have the chops. So there's somebody in Singapore, there's somebody in Delhi, there's somebody in Adelaide, there's somebody somewhere in the world who's part of that group who I know, okay, now people can come as an agency.
Like a directory almost. Yeah.
And then we have, somebody's reaching out and saying, I need this video to be done in.
Yeah.
I know exactly who to pair you up with, and I take a little percentage or whatever. Yep. So and then becomes this international agency. That would be like a huge end game.
The dream, right? Yeah. I think, and you're kind of well positioned right now, because I foresee the complete collapse of large scale studios and basically public broadcast, which I know upsets a lot of people, but it's like the writing's on the wall, right? Like there comes a point where there's like, you have to have enough capital injection or it just doesn't work. And we're seeing more and more like out of home, and more of that is switching to online based, because you got like YouTube became, I think it's something like, and this has changed already, but it was like 40% of TV usage last year was YouTube. That's an online only thing, right? So like good on Google, they're making bank on that, right? But like where the advertising dollars go is where the medium goes. Now we're going to shift from having, and I think even YouTube's actually toying with this now, it's like YouTube Studio stuff, is building out high quality assets that are basically closely linked to the distribution. And so that I think is going to be magic. Because I think of like our team, like what we have here, it's a small group, like we're a small group of like, you know, under 10 people, but we're making stuff that you would never have been able to make for a team under 20,
right?
Like 3 years ago. So like now that's going to be the magic, is going to be these small pockets of creatives making cool stuff and, you know, being self-distribution, like you're being self-distribution of your education. I think it's just a wonderful time to start connecting, because yeah, you could be in Adelaide, you could be somewhere else and need access to different parties. And that's where I think we're going to see in this area especially is like, oh, he's a really good sound guy. He's really good at this. Bring these guys into, they don't need to be working all the time together, but they can work on projects, like project-based freelancer gigs. And that's, I think, where we're going to see media and basically freelance creatives for the next like 10, 15 years.
So two things to that.
Okay.
One is like, you know, we talk about like the difference in not just distribution, but in delivery platforms and so on.
Yep.
People talk about vertical content now, and not just vertical feature content. It's something that I think, oh, that's a crazy idea.
I hate it.
Maybe, but
I just like a panoramic kind of style picture.
A friend of mine who's an ex-colleague from my days at YTV and Chorus Entertainment has a company out west, and they have just announced they're starting a whole studio that's going to be vertical feature content. How that goes, I'm not sure. But what I do know is this, and this is this leading to the second point, is that I know what he and his people can deliver. So like, okay, that's somebody who knows the creative side and who is going to venture into this new way of presenting it. That's, to me, that's a good pathway to the end result. What I noticed back in the 90s especially was 90s, early 2000s, there was a lot of Canadian content on Life Network, doesn't exist anymore, but HGTV, these smaller outlier networks, which are now main channels. But the people who were making the content, who were in control of their shows, were the ones who were able to navigate funding, could do the business side, but had very little idea of how to do the creative. And there was this constant like hair pulling of like, oh my God, this show could be so much better if they listened to the creatives. But because they were the ones who, you know, were able to find the funding, bankroll it, figure out how to like, you know, get it up and running, they also thought they could manage the creative side. And they didn't have that, what we were talking about earlier, the idea of like, okay, now we've done that part, let's hire people who know what they're doing. They would hire people, but they would still dictate, this is the way the show is going to be formatted. It's like, there's a better way to do this. Let the creatives do it. And so you had this like this autonomy through being able to navigate the shit and the funding, you know,
mess.
The mess, and get that funding. And therefore, okay, then you got the green light because you found the funding. And the network's like, well, you got the green light. And whatever you do now, we don't have to pay much because you figured out the funding. And there was a mess with and it wasn't the best content. And I think now with AI, with the ability, like, you know, to self-curate and so on, you have that same sort of mess, but from a different angle. And I think people like yourselves here, you're positioned well because you are, and like my friend out west who's starting that vertical, as much as we may or may not like vertical features.
It's just it's personal.
Of course. And everything is, right? But the coming at it from that creative point first, this is where AI comes in again. Now that's the third point, where AI can come in and help you navigate sort of funding and filling out, you know, all that stuff and navigate that, not the creative side, but the business side. As long as you can, or if you can find people to do that as well and bring that on, and then you're creative first, but you can also navigate funding, then there's no stopping you.
I would say the navigation of funding is it's always the topic whenever I was talking with the students. And I would also say that the funding is always conditional to what the funder needs.
Unless you got some like RBC, Scotiabank, and they're like, you know what, we just want to give money and entrust because it's nothing to them. Yeah. And it's a tax write-off, or it's just a feel-good, more of a feel-good than anything else. Like, look what we did.
Even though those are just tax write-offs. There's like, I just need to, get rid of some money so we don't get highly taxed. Yeah. Right. So like there's always conditions involved with that. And I think what we're seeing is I think we're seeing the democratization of media. And I think
we have for a while.
And I think like Mr. Beast actually is really kind of like one of the first real kind of like, this is going to make a difference. And ironically, I would say that online was the Twitch streamers, was the people like that who actually were out there streaming and putting out content that actually developed this new platform before anybody even knew what it was, which is we're going to put in some time into a concept, right? We're building a podcast. We don't know if it'll work or not, but we're going to do it for, 1,000 conversations. That's our goal. And we're not going to stop. Like that's our goal. And during that time, if it monetizes, great. If it doesn't, then we're not going to be upset either because we just wanted to do this. And it's those kind of situations I think we're going to see more and more and more of people, like little groups of just passionate creatives that like, this is what I want to do. And this is why I'm so excited for creatives, because everyone right now is doomsdaying over AI and all that. And I'm just like, are you kidding me? AI doesn't know how you and I feel. That's the number one problem. It can never understand until they start putting electrodes on your head. And then when you watch the video, then they can understand it. They don't understand. There's an intuition that occurs when you're watching something as a person that you like it or you don't. And you always know. And you always know when there's something off, right? That cannot be replicated by, binary code. It just can't. Not for now. And I don't think it ever will be. So until that happens, creatives will always have a place. Now the tools will change. Now the mediums will change. The distribution will change.
But what remains, Ash? What remains? And that goes back to the very beginning of our conversation. It's the connection. It's the intention, which is the connection, which is the emotion. So AI can help you pump out a shit ton of content. But how much of that content is intentional and evokes the right emotion that, for lack of a better way of putting it, sells? And that's the difference. You want to just pump out a bunch of shit? AI away. Because you can get a ton of content made. You can have the AI create the script, deliver the script, an avatar deliver the script, and then another AI edit that shit. And all you've done is put in a simple prompt and said, make me 100 of these things, and it'll go. Sorry, Aiden. Cut you again. Yeah. It'll just pump out that shit.
Yeah.
But how much of that shit is actually going to land? Oh, look at all the content I created.
Yeah.
Yeah. But how much of it is connecting? Again, with intention. So yeah, I don't worry about like the editors who go, oh, I'm losing my job to AI. No, if you're a button pusher, absolutely. If you're simply a button pusher, but a real editor, a true editor, is not just editing images and stacks of timelines. They're editing emotion. And they're feeling it. Like when somebody says like, I remember being with an executive, a business owner in Picton, and they said a dissolve has to be 10 seconds.
That's a long dissolve.
I'm like, first of all, it's a long dissolve. You put a number?
Yeah.
Like there's like a formula to a dissolve. It makes no, it's what you feel. Oh, no. I'm like, where am I?
Maybe that works on PowerPoint.
Yeah, oh God. Talk about putting me to sleep.
Yeah.
But the idea that AI is going to replace button pushers is true.
Yeah.
But it's not going to replace editors in the true sense of when you're editing story. You are, if you're just a button pusher, and I've met a couple in industry that I worked with once and said never again. I remember a guy at CBC editing away, and he wanted every in point and out point to almost to the frame. And I was like, oh my God, this is painful. When's he going to actually edit? And I walked away to go to the washroom. I said, how's it going? And he was sitting there, he goes, oh, I don't do anything when the producer walks out. I'm waiting for you. And the flip side of that, Chris, I love you. Chris Kepi, one of my favorite editors of all time, no longer with us. But that guy taught me a shit ton. My very first edit as a very, very, very junior, my first edit at YTV, my first sit in and edit professionally. And I was sitting there in the producer's chair, and I was giving him in and out points to the fucking frame. And I think about 3 or 4 edits in, He slammed his hands on the console, spun his chair around. He goes, I'm not a fucking button pusher. Give me some pad. Give me some room to be creative. Yeah. And I was like, I thought I was doing him a favor.
No. Yeah.
And no. And so I learned a heck of a lot there. And real editors, that's what it's about. Like, and then it got to the point years later where I'd go in when I was lucky enough to be with Kepi again, I'd show up and I'd have my EDL, my edit decision list, my script, my whatever you call it, my paperwork. And it would be loose. It would have a framework and a structure of what I want to end. We'd have a coffee. We'd talk about it. And he'd go, okay, now fuck off. Go do whatever I'll call you at, come back around lunchtime. Yeah. And now sometimes I'd sit there with him and I'd do my own thing on the laptop or whatever. But, he would feel it. And he would feel the edits. And I think any editor who's listening right now understands, a good editor understands exactly what I'm saying. Yep. There's no definitive, it must be edited at that point. Like, what feels right for that moment? Yeah. And I think AI absolutely cannot do that.
It cannot emote.
No.
Paul, we've done a beautiful big circle that kind of like loops and closes itself here. So I want to wrap up by saying that if creatives are out there trying to learn and grow and are finding themselves a bit out there by themselves, then they can use the story architects to really hone their skills, build their community, and overall just become a stronger competitor in today's multimedia market. So how do they find you? And give us some handles. Yeah.
So Instagram is probably the best way to find me. I mean, I should say, we're on YouTube, TikTok, but Instagram, The Story Architects, and it's _story_architects. Because I think there's a couple of accounts that have the same name, but _story_architects on Instagram. Join, check out what I have to offer there. A lot of it's just fun stuff, a lot of film critiquing, a lot of commentary on content. Some, very cursory sort of surface level storytelling lessons, little bits and bytes. But once you get in there, then there's also a link to the school community. And that's where the asynchronous video lessons exist. And you can watch those, but more importantly, become a member of the community and meet like-minded people who are just looking to grow their own community, grow their own network, learn from each other. And that is the best way to grow. I think if you're learning on your own, you're limited. Join a group like the Story Architects, and it is limitless. Because once we grow, the people you'll meet, I mean, not only could they be colleagues and collaborators in the content you're going to create, could be you're meeting the next, best friend, the next best man at your wedding.
The next David Fincher.
The next David Fincher or David Lynch, yeah.
Could you imagine? Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much.
All right.
I appreciate you. And
thanks for having me, man.
Yeah.
Story Architects. Make sure you check it out.